These are the 10 most toxic relationships in Family Guy, starting with the episode Quagmire's Quagmire, where Glenn gets trapped in a dangerously intense romance. The episode began at the Quahog Mall, where Peter, Joe, and Quagmire arrive to buy a new computer for Glenn.
You know what? I think I'm gonna go with this one.
But the new device became a challenge for Quagmire. He got confused by his settings and functions, and it eventually crashed. Luckily for him, the computer was still under warranty, so Glenn reached out to customer support. But there, he had an incident.
Okay, I see what your problem is.
So that's why you needed a computer, Glenn. Suddenly, the support worker showed no reaction to the spicy situation. She not only fixed his computer, but also gave him advice about porn.
Personally, I'd recommend college Latinas. I mean, I want to see Latinas, but I also want them to
Speak
speak
English,
Yes, exactly.
Glenn was amazed to meet a woman who shared his interests, so he asked her for a date. During their first date, they quickly became close. Quagmire began to think that this was his destined wife. But the first alarm bell rang already after the first night.
Oh my God! You roofied me?
Are you mad?
No! I'm in love.
This is clearly not how you should react to poisoning. The biggest danger was that Glenn considered this behavior normal. He didn't see it as a threat or anything unusual. And when he met the guys next time, he kept praising her.
I'm telling you guys, Sonia is the perfect woman.
But his friends weren't so delighted. They were alarmed that Glenn was so enthusiastic and had even changed his status after the first date.
All right, but just be careful, you know? You don't want to rush an important decision.
If even Peter is telling you to be careful, you really should pay attention. Quagmire and Sonia spent more and more time together, fulfilling their desires and pushing the boundaries of what is allowed. But soon the situation started to get out of control.
It seems like lately that girlfriend of yours is taking things a little too far.
No, she's not. Everything's great with us.
Finally, Quagmire realized that his ideal relationship wasn't as perfect as it seemed. However, like many victims in toxic relationships, he was in no hurry to face the truth. His friends also started to worry about him, but it was too late.
Ow! You're hurting me, and I really need to clean out my trunk.
Oh, I'm gonna clean out your trunk. Giggity.
This is the reddest red flag possible. Quagmire's disappearance was noticed by Ida, his father. He began to suspect that Glenn was not just busy somewhere.
I've already checked Glenn's house and there's no sign he's even been there. I'm afraid something terrible has happened.
Ida, along with Joe and Peter, began looking for Quagmire. They checked all his favorite places and eventually got a lead. A man in a shady spot recognized Sonia and told them to be careful and where they could find her.
Apparently that chick's a complete psycho.
We gotta get over there!
Glenn's friends and his father rushed to Quahog storage. They quickly located the facility they needed and found Quagmire inside. Yes, that's kind of how I imagined Glenn's death. Sonia tried to ambush them, but she failed and was captured and arrested.
You're going to jail.
Finally, Quagmire was rescued from both captivity and a toxic relationship. In this episode, Quagmire falls into an uneasy involvement with Sonia, leading to a series of troubling events. In real life, a situation like that can often have red flags that are easy to overlook. It's important to prioritize your well-being and be ready to walk away when things aren't right. But what if you've already missed all the opportunities to walk away? Just like Brian in the episode Dead Dog Walking, when his toxic relationship was about to end in the most terrible way. All this story began early, in the episode Married with Cancer, when Brian began a relationship with a girl he met in the club. She was terminally ill, so they didn't plan anything serious and lived off her bucket list. It's a good idea for another Netflix documentary. But very quickly, their feelings began to grow stronger.
I really like you. I can't remember the last time I felt this happy.
Unfortunately, her illness progressed and she was hospitalized. At the hospital, the doctors gave her heartbreaking news.
You've got approximately 2 weeks left to live.
This news shocked Jess. She began to regret not having had time to get married and start a family. This pushed Brian to take a big step.
It would be my honor if you spent the rest of your life as my bride.
Maybe it's just the right time to say that you have a son. Brian and Jess had organized a wedding and got married when her doctor brought unexpected news.
Meaning Jess is going to live.
This was the moment when everything started to go wrong. Brian didn't plan on being married for long, and now, as the romance faded and daily life started to feel heavy, his relationship with Jess quickly fell apart.
Stewie, I've got to get out of this.
Already? Your wedding photos are still printing. The worst part was that, with their story in the spotlight and pressure from the public, they couldn't get a divorce. Brian and Jess just continued to live together, hoping that something would change. But the situation kept getting worse. Jess lived carelessly, eating out, and completely ignoring Brian. The hopelessness pushed Brian to his breaking point.
I'm burning it down so I can fake my own death.
Wow, is this really necessary? Can you just step out for some cigarettes and, This time, Peter saved the moment by opening an easier way out. He suggested Brian to relax and accept the fate of the unlucky married guy. Brian agreed and quickly became overweight and lazy, yet his relationships only got worse because of it. His family began fighting over his smell, behavior, and drinking habits. Following Peter's advice, Brian ignored it all, until fate stepped in.
Holy crap, Brian, you okay?
Now Brian needed care and treatment for a few weeks. He needed to lose weight and change his lifestyle. The burden of caring for him fell on his wife. Their relationship problems showed up again when they were invited to dinner at the Griffin's house.
Thank you for having us over for dinner. Sometimes it's been difficult to cook with all the other things I have to do for Brian.
Oh, don't listen to her. I'm so easy.
But Brian's refusal to face reality no longer mattered. He had hip surgery scheduled for tomorrow, and only Jess knew what kind of operation it really was. The very next day, Jess took him to the hospital, but things didn't go quite as Brian expected. Jess said goodbye to him. They took his collar away, and instead of the operating room, they took him to a cage.
Where do you think you are? This isn't a doctor's office. This is the pound. You're being euthanized.
What? Jess is having me put down? Oh my god, this can't be happening!
Luckily for him, Peter came to visit and discovered that Brian was in danger. Alarmed, Peter rushed to save his friend and arrived just in time.
Stop! That's my dog! Oh, Peter, thank God! You got here just in time.
But the worst was yet to come. After the incident, Jess and Brian talked and realized they had treated each other badly. That meant they deserved each other and should stay together. But luck was on Brian's side once again. This time, Jess died for good. In this episode, Brian's toxic marriage spirals out of control, nearly ending with him being put down. In real life, staying in a bad relationship out of public pressure would only lead to more misery. When things start going wrong, don't wait for a lucky chance and take your fate into your own hands. But not everyone is lucky enough to escape a toxic marriage like Brian did. Carter and Barbara Peter-Assment stayed in such a relationship their whole lives, and in the episode Welcome Back, Carter, we see how they constantly tear each other down. The episode began at the Peter-Assment mansion where the Griffin family was invited to dinner, but the celebration was delayed because one person was absent.
I'm so sorry about your father keeping us. He's probably down at the dock tinkering with that darn yacht of his.
Peter, Lois, and Barb got bored of waiting, so they decided to look at old photos and recall some romantic memories. Barb began telling the story of how she met Carter when they were resting on the same beach.
Ah, you dumb bitch!
My friend and I held our breath, wondering which one of us he was talking to. But the lucky one was me.
Well, we already know who will be a victim in this toxic trap. Barb tells them that she and Carter really loved each other, but when he was drafted into the war, they almost lost it. She thought he had died and found another boyfriend. Barb even agreed to marry him, yet her heart still belonged to Carter.
I believe Reginald knew this, and he even tried to strike me in the manner to which I had become accustomed. But it wasn't the same.
Didn't she have any friends to tell her that it's not okay? Lois liked the story about Carter's return and their marriage. However, Peter became hungry and irritated.
Look, Peter, if you're that hungry, go down to the dock and find Daddy and we'll get dinner started.
Peter went to call Carter from his yacht, but he found him in a very awkward situation.
Mr. Peter-Assment, you're having an affair? Ew!
On the same day the family gathered for dinner next door, Carter brought his lover to the yacht. This shocked Peter and he wanted to tell everyone. However, Carter intimidated him and tried to keep it a secret.
You didn't see anything. Remember that, or I'll ruin you. Okay, I promise.
But Peter couldn't stay quiet for long and spilled the truth.
Damn right, you hear that, Lois? And he's not just saying that because I covered for him about his affair. What?
The news shocked Barb and she decided to file for divorce. Angry, Carter started a fight with Peter. He blamed him for the problems without admitting his guilt. Only Brian shared a reasonable opinion.
You know, maybe the two of you splitting up is a blessing in disguise. I mean, there are obviously some problems in your relationship.
Carter took the advice and tried to take a break and relax, but quickly realized that he wasn't interested in it. He wanted to get back to his old relationship. Carter decided to apologize to Barb and try to save his marriage.
Give me one more chance, and I pledge to place above you nothing, not even myself, for all my time here and for time forever. Please, I beg you.
The speech is straight out of the manipulator's playbook. Barbara was ready to take Carter back and save the marriage, but she did not forgive him for his betrayal. Now their relationship was just a fiction of a happy marriage. This episode took us through a toxic love story in Peter-Assment's family, filled with cheating and a forced happy ending. Such a relationship doesn't heal with empty promises. They both need to give up their roles as victim and abuser. But more often, only one partner works on making changes, and it gets even worse when the other person intentionally ruins them. Just like in the episode The Story of Brenda Q, where the relationship of Quagmire's sister ended with a devastating outcome. The story began when Quagmire was late for a fishing trip with Peter and Joe, which was unusual for him. Concerned, they went to his house and found him unconscious, hanging from the ceiling.
Oh my God! He must have autoerotically asphyxiated himself!
They immediately took him to the hospital where he was diagnosed with a coma. His sister Brenda and her boyfriend Jeff soon arrived to visit him. Jeff was an aggressive, controlling figure who constantly mistreated Brenda, making it immediately clear that their relationship was deeply toxic.
Hey, you touching my girl? Relax, Jeff, that's her brother.
Later, back at Quagmire's home, Jeff's true nature was revealed even in a more terrible way. He abused Brenda in front of everyone and justified his behavior by blaming her for everything wrong in his life.
Come here! You fat, ugly bitch! If today wasn't your birthday...
Jeff, please, you're being...
What? What am I being? Crazy? Unemployed? Why don't you call the cops like you did on Christmas?
No, I didn't call them. They were called.
Oh, now you're calling me a liar in front of this cat?
I got another cat.
This guy is literally a walking red flag. Quagmire and the Griffin family were alarmed by Brenda's situation. They decided that Lois should talk to Brenda and try to convince her to leave Jeff. During the talk, even worse things came to light. Jeff beat her often, and Brenda acted like it was normal, even making excuses for him.
You don't see how soft and gentle he hits me when we're alone.
Do you hear yourself?
After Lois's failure, Quagmire turned to Joe, hoping he could arrest Jeff, but the law required Brenda to file a formal complaint, which she refused to do out of fear.
Sorry, Quagmire. Police policy, we can't step in until it's too late.
With no legal way to step in and knowing that Brenda and Jeff planned to marry, Quagmire was ready to take radical action.
The three of us. We go over there and we do what's right. We kill a bastard.
They decided to take matters into their own hands, tricking Jeff into going on a hunting trip with them. Their goal was clear: eliminate Jeff before he could kill Brenda. But Jeff uncovered their plan.
You're gonna kill me, is that it?
Luckily for guys, and unfortunately for Jeff, this didn't save him from his fate. Quagmire outsmarted the abuser of his sister and managed to kill him. That was a pretty reliable way to cancel the wedding. Brenda was very upset about Jeff's disappearance, but at least her toxic relationship was over. In this episode, Brenda's dangerous bond forced her loved ones to act to protect her. If someone you love is being abused, support them and ensure they have a safe way out. Violence, however, is never a good solution. But it's really hard to find a good solution when friends and lovers are mixed together. In the episode The Cleveland-Loretta Quagmire, Glenn's interruption in Cleveland's complicated relationship totally ruined his friend's life. The story began when the Griffins and all their friends decided to have a party on a boat. During the party, Quagmire accidentally threw a fish into the cleavage of Loretta, Cleveland's wife, and she suggested that he get it back himself.
Yeah, you go in and get that. Show that fishy who's boss.
Cleveland saw this happen but didn't seem to care. It became obvious for Glenn that Loretta, feeling unfulfilled by Cleveland's lack of passion, had become unhappy in her marriage. So, Quagmire and Loretta began an affair, secretly betraying Cleveland. Later, while walking down Spooner Street, Brian and Peter heard a strange scream coming from Cleveland's house.
Loretta's in trouble!
After they entered Cleveland's house, Peter and Brian accidentally caught Loretta in the middle of an affair with a white man. At first, Peter believed it was Cleveland, but upon closer inspection, he realized it was someone else.
Wait a minute, Brian, if that wasn't Cleveland doing it with Loretta, then Loretta's having an affair!
They witnessed the betrayal and decided to keep it a secret for a while. However, as time passed, Peter couldn't hold it in any longer. He told his friends and family and was now ready to break the news to Cleveland.
Your wife's cheating on you. What?
Cleveland was devastated and rushed home to talk with Loretta. But instead of denying it, she started accusing Cleveland of being boring and lacking character. Loretta kicked Cleveland out of the house and he temporarily moved in with the Griffins. But the situation became even more intense when Peter and Brian accidentally discovered who Loretta's lover was.
He's the one we saw sleeping with Loretta.
Oh my God!
Peter immediately broke the news to Cleveland. Cleveland, at first frustrated and confused by his feelings, decided to confront Quagmire about the affair. He expressed his rage and even threatened Quagmire with violence.
I'm gonna kill Quagmire!
Why hold yourself back? Just take them both out. However, when the moment of truth arrived, Cleveland couldn't bring himself to hurt Quagmire despite the betrayal. Instead, he forgave Quagmire and decided to leave it all behind. He even broke up with Loretta and filed for divorce. Pleasure to watch a smart decision like that. Cleveland's marriage to Loretta wasn't perfect from the start, and her affair with Quagmire just sped up its inevitable end. In real life, when your friend cheats on you with your wife, it forces difficult decisions with forgiveness or divorce. Dealing with betrayal like that requires emotional growth and support from your real friends. But sometimes your friends turn out to be fake, just like in the episode American Gigg-olo, where Quagmire's trust in a friend made him a victim of the most toxic partner possible. The story began with the pilot's strike at Quahog Airport. Quagmire was left without a job. Struggling financially and desperate for a way to make money, he initially takes up stripping at a bachelorette party, striking pilots and stripping at parties. Quagmire's life is definitely on a downward flight path. The opportunity to make easy money turned Glenn into a full-time stripper. But when his friends caught him doing it, he made excuses and said he was just making some extra money.
I am a dancer, not a gigolo.
Captain Cockpit, my friend is about to get married, and we were wondering if you'd have sex with her for $500.
I'm a gigolo.
Quagmire realized he could make a fortune, so he fully embraced the gigolo lifestyle. But things took a turn when one of his clients refused to pay. With no money for a taxi, he asked Peter for a ride, but Peter was upset about Glenn's situation and decided to act.
Because he's the hero Gotham deserves.
Luckily, everything turned out fine, which inspired Glenn to make a deal with Peter.
Hey, maybe you could drive me around and help me out, and I could even pay you a little something for your time.
Sure, that sounds great.
They began to actively cooperate, so Peter not only drove and protected Glenn, he also looked for new clients. Now, Quagmire was working much more than before. One night, he told Peter he's too tired to work, but Peter refused to accept it.
What the hell did you say to me?
Peter, what are you doing?
You tripping, boy? You're going out if I tell you you're going out, bitch!
Did he actually buy this suit? Or do they just hand out these fancy work uniforms? Now, the relationship between Peter and Glenn was more tense than ever. Terrified, Quagmire continued to work under Peter's rule, losing all sense of independence.
You know I hit you and whore you out because I love you, right?
He's an asshole.
The final of this relationship came on one of Quagmire's work nights. One of the clients crossed the line and Peter had to step in.
Big Pete, help! She wants to do German things! German things!
What? No! He hasn't eaten anything in days! It's not gonna work! 9! 9!
But the situation got out of control, and the woman took both of them. This incident became a wake-up call for Peter and Glenn.
Hey, listen, buddy, I'm sorry about all this.
This was the end of Quagmire's career as a gigolo, Peter's as a pimp, and most importantly, the end of their toxic and cruel relationship. Well, this is definitely a happy ending, but I'm still interested in what this German thing is. This time, Quagmire's desperation for money led him into a companionship with Peter, who abused his power as Quagmire's pimp. True friendship is about respect and support, not control or taking advantage. If someone takes more than they give, it's time to think about whether that relationship is worth keeping. Exactly this question Joe and Bonnie faced in the episode Foreign Affairs, where they were forced to make a very difficult decision. This story began when Lois and Bonnie went on a vacation to Paris.
Oh my God, Bonnie, we're gonna have such a good time.
They decided to go without their families to relax and take their minds off things. When they arrived, Lois was amazed by Paris, the French people, and their luxurious hotel room. But she was truly shocked when Bonnie revealed something to her.
I came here to have an affair.
An affair?
Who's a whore?
That'd be me, sir.
It turned out that Bonnie's main purpose of the trip was to sleep with the first guy she liked. Why fly to Paris when you have Quagmire on your street?
Giggity!
During the vacation, Bonnie started flirting with different men, trying to make her plan work. Lois was completely against it and tried to convince Bonnie to save her relationship with Joe.
But I just can't believe you'd throw away all those years with Joe just to have some silly fling.
I'm not throwing anything away. Joe and I have been growing apart for a long time.
It seems like she forgot that divorce was an option. Meanwhile, Lois kept trying to stop Bonnie to explain to her that she couldn't behave like that in a marriage and that it was very cruel to Joe. For a moment, it seemed like Lois's words had worked, and Bonnie gave up the idea of betraying Joe. But the very next day, Lois found out that Bonnie had already had an affair.
Bonjour.
So now we know, Joe wasn't her tragedy, he was her kink. After Bonnie cheated on Joe, she decided to take it even further and stay in Paris with her new lover. But this time, Lois outplayed her and made a step ahead.
You know, I thought you might say something like this, and that's why I called someone who might be able to change your mind.
The appearance of Joe completely changed the situation. He managed to convince her to save their relationship and come back home with him. In this episode, Bonnie's vacation to Paris took an unexpected turn as she betrayed Joe and embraced her affair. An attempt to leave your husband and start a new life with another man will forever leave a stain on your relationship. Never let temporary excitement cloud your judgment. True happiness lies in honesty and commitment. Yet, if a toxic relationship isn't in your marriage but at your workplace, the situation feels completely different. In the episode Peter-Assment, Peter was trapped in an affair where his boss crossed every red line. The story began when Peter bought himself a video camera and decided to become a journalist.
Meet Peter Griffin, video paparazzi. From now on, I'm going to be right where the action is.
Trying to find a big story, Peter began chasing celebrities. But very soon he crossed the line and was beaten by Ollie Williams, the local weatherman. The accident had consequences which led to a change of Peter's look.
Stupid Ollie Williams broke my glasses. I gotta put in my contacts.
Peter didn't know that the real outcome was waiting for him at work. His boss, Angela, saw his new look and felt excited. You can only imagine how lonely you must feel to see Peter this way. But the situation quickly went from sweet to dangerous because the new Peter had awakened a forgotten desire in Angela.
Oh no, I dropped my pencil.
Oh, I'll get it for you.
Yeah.
Harassed, Peter went home but found no support there, so he just went to work again and his relationship with Angela got worse. She forced him to wear a revealing uniform and to fulfill her wishes. Maybe it's time to knock on the HR office. Peter kept suffering and staying quiet, so Angela decided to take strong action.
And she wants me to come over to her house tonight to work on a special project.
Peter didn't want to lose a job, so he asked Quagmire to do dirty work. Is this already the highest level of friendship, or do we have one more to go? But Glenn couldn't bring himself to have sex with Angela. Now Peter was left alone with her, and she gave him an ultimatum.
Griffin, you have sex with me or you're fired.
Cornered, Peter found the strength to refuse her. He lost his job but escaped an unpleasant situation. That evening, Peter thought the situation over, and his suppressed emotions overtook him. He decided to stand up for himself and get his job back. But when he arrived at Angela's home, the situation took a dramatic turn.
Oh my God!
It turned out that Angela was disappointed with her life, and the affair with Peter was her last attempt to change something. I'm amazed at how everyone in this universe just ignores the existence of psychotherapy. What happened completely changed Peter's attitude.
Look, Angela, I came over here to punch you and maybe kick you in the boob, but now I'm all turned around.
What a sweet guy. He decided to help Angela, asked her to dinner, drove her home, and even.
Oh, that was fantastic. It was exactly what I needed.
This was the end of their complicated relationship. Peter got his job back, and his boss gave up on the idea of harassment or suicide. Angela never found out that she hadn't slept with Peter Griffin.
No, I didn't. I used Mort. Oh my God, I forgot about Mort.
I want my $2.
In this story, we saw how Angela and Peter's unhealthy workplace affair led to the big scandal and even a suicide attempt. Nowadays, a situation like this would have ended in lawsuits, not dinner. Workplace boundaries exist for a reason. Crossing them leads to nothing but trouble. And you will only have even more troubles if you insist when someone clearly refuses you. Just like in the episode Jerome is the New Black, when Brian decided to become friends with Quagmire at any cost. This time, it all started with Peter, Joe, and Quagmire missing Cleveland and deciding to find a new fourth friend. When Brian heard about it, he decided to put himself forward as a candidate.
Well, you don't need to look for somebody new. I'll hang out with you guys.
But Peter immediately rejected him, saying it was because of Quagmire. It turned out that Glenn hates Brian. Nothing strange, Quagmire was always a cat person. Confused, Brian decided to find out why Glenn hated him. He waited until Quagmire came to get his mail and tried to make small talk by commenting on Glenn's girlfriend. He called her sexy and assumed that she enjoys rough treatment, but it went terribly wrong.
That's my sister, Brian. Her boyfriend has been beating her mercilessly. The last thing she'd want right now is to be objectified.
Oh.
The scandal at Quagmire's home only made things worse between them, but Brian didn't give up on his idea of befriending Glenn. The very next day, Brian had dinner with Glenn. Since Quagmire didn't want to talk to him, Brian used a cunning plan.
I tricked him, sent him a phony card. He thinks he's going on a date with an old girlfriend.
Obviously not the best way to start a friendship. When it was time for dinner, Brian picked up Quagmire in a limousine. Glenn realized the date with his ex was a fraud, and his disappointment knew no bounds.
I thought this was my chance to finally achieve some real happiness.
Quagmire's emotions and sadness didn't stop Brian from going ahead with the dinner. He had planned the entire evening and was determined to follow through. At the restaurant, the atmosphere was dull and boring, and Glenn barely tolerated Brian. Why did Glenn even agree to this? Finally, Brian couldn't hold it anymore and asked Glenn directly.
I'm trying to establish a friendship with you. All I've done is try to be nice to you, and you still don't like me. How can you not like me?
Suddenly, Quagmire agreed to explain his behavior to Brian. He accused Brian of being greedy, pretentious, alcoholic, and hypocritical.
Boy, you okay?
He also called him out for staring at Lois in a creepy way, shitting on Peter's lawn, abandoning his son, and never finishing anything.
You're just a big, sad, alcoholic bore. I'll see you, Brian. Thanks for the steak.
Well, it looks like more than just the steak got roasted here. This was the end of Brian's attempts to fix his troubled relationship with Quagmire. In this episode, Brian desperately tried to befriend Quagmire only to face brutal rejection. It's pretty obvious that forcing a friendship will likely lead to an awkward and painful outcome. Friendship should come naturally. If someone doesn't like you, it's best to move on. Or if you're as stubborn as Stewie in the episode Chick Cancer, you might keep trying until you end up in a messy, toxic romance. This relationship began when Stewie met his old friend Olivia at the grand opening of a new shop. At first, Stewie was unfriendly because they had a bad breakup before. However, when he saw her, his mood completely changed.
Brian, she looks fantastic.
Fascinated by her beauty, Stewie asked her out on a date, but she turned him down. Stewie refused to give up and kept chasing Olivia. Looking for advice, he turned to Quagmire, a successful lover, as Brian suggested.
Not doing that, Glenn!
Come on, beautiful, keep an open mind.
You're a sick man!
Hey, keep it down. I don't want my neighbors seeing a fat old dirty whore screaming at me on my front lawn.
Whore? Well, maybe I should come inside.
Well, maybe you should.
What he saw inspired Stewie to change how he tried to win Olivia over.
Women respond when you treat them like crap. Well, Olivia, prepare to meet a much darker Stewie Griffin.
Stewie just speedrun every red flag in the dating world. The next day, Stewie showed up at Olivia's house in his new role. He was rude and bold, but it worked, and they planned a date for Saturday. On Saturday, they spent the whole day together, and everything went smoothly.
Wow, look at that.
A perfect end to a perfect day.
Yeah.
The problem started as soon as their second date. Stewie became jealous and easily annoyed.
What the hell is wrong with you? You're acting like a jerk!
Acting like a jerk? Olivia, you forgot too fast what a sweet guy you chose.
So I'll pick you up at 7?
Facing their first big problem in the relationship, they decided to take action. So, after the second date, they got married. But this only made things worse. Now, they were always arguing and blaming each other. When Brian and his girlfriend invited them to dinner, the tension in their relationship reached its peak.
Olivia, the three of us are having a great time. What's your problem?
My problem is you!
The scandal in the restaurant was the beginning of the end for this couple. Completely disappointed, Stewie was ready to finish this relationship. But when he came home to Olivia, the situation took an unexpected turn.
Stewie, this isn't what it looks like.
Stewie accused Olivia of cheating and said he was leaving her. He was ready to walk away. But then he came up with a different idea of how to end this story. At least they won't have to argue over who gets the apartment. This story showed us the rocky and very unhealthy romance between Olivia and Stewie. Jumping into things too quickly and treating someone poorly rarely leads to a happy ending. Relationships require respect, trust, and communication, not manipulation and drama. Sometimes it's better to resist momentary temptations and stay alone. But you'll never feel alone if you join our friendly community. So, subscribe, hit the like button, and thank you for watching.